We're going to talk about hey, stop talking. We're going to talk about 7-6. And on 7-5, or 7-7, I mean 7-7, yes, 7-7. On 7-6, we talked about sine, cosine, and tangent, and if they give us an angle, solving for side lengths, yes? Today we're going to talk about the opposite. When they give us side lengths, how do we solve for the angle? Okay? And so we're going to start this with something that's really stupid, but that's okay. It will be a song that will help you maybe remember.
I am so excited. We are finally going to start our unit on trigonometry this morning.
And this is really funny and cheesy.
I don't even know what that is.
It's what we're doing.
Is it fun? Can you make it some fun or something?
Yeah.
On your mark, ready, set, let's go.
That's like Ryan in The Office.
I know, you know, I go psycho when I see a triangle. Just can't sit, gotta get tricky with it. All that's it, 3 angles, 3 sides. T-R-I-G, all up in my eye. Soka, Toa, will tell you where to go. You just gotta know about H and O. Everybody looking at a glance at the box. The H-Y-P is sitting across. Theta, theta, is that the eta, eta? For on it, for the look, I don't like it. Beside you ain't counting, it's the O-P-P. Making it tricky, we want you to see. Yo, what's that last side you say? It's gotta be the ADJ. Get tricky with it.
So when we're doing solving for sides, you use SOHCAHTOA, yes?
Yeah.
And when we solve for angles, we're going to talk about using the inverse of those. No, we're going to talk about the inverse, and then we'll talk about how to find that on your calculator. I also find it ironic that only the white people are rapping in this video.
Try to work this game, in the middle of the problem, don't know which one.
My favorite's the PE
Gotta
teacher
know
with
which
circles.
angles, sides that are missing and given in the problem, they're the guides. You can come with me, all these problems
So,
I'm
I
trying.
closed
Learn
this
is hard,
all
and
week.
somebody lied. And SOHCAHTOA helps you to study, so you know when to use each one. If you got the O and HYP, so let's you know that's the way to go. Let's say now you got the HYP and the ADJ, then cosine's the way, yes, y'all. But there's one more, you got the legs?
That makes it tame.
Please excuse this interruption. This is Terry. Please call 1001.
Get tricky with it. Get tricky with it.
Roll with me right now. If you need a sign, you gotta know 2 things. Okay, let's ride.
Yeah,
You
this
need
is
an
what you don't
angle
know.
and one of the
Or this is
sides.
what you
Each
do.
bend
This is what
where
you
the
wanna
things
know.
reside. See it up high, that's how you know to multiply. So easy, you get it on your own first try. Straight to the maximum, I'll be axing them. How about the one time you gotta use television? Only if X is down below. X and the angle will switch, you know. Last case, it's angle finding time. So let's get it, trust. The beta is the goal, get it alone. Calculators will know when I say go. Take the inverse of the numbers on the right, hit equals and show it off. Now you got it. Get tricky with it.
So all we're going to do is take the inverse of sine, cosine, and tangent to find the angle. So it still has the same rules that apply. If you have opposite and hypotenuse, you're using sine. If you have adjacent and hypotenuse, you're using cosine. If you have opposite and adjacent, you're using tangent. But you'll use the inverse function of that. Okay?
You probably could make one of these videos for our school.
Oh, you definitely could, yes.
It'd be way better than this.
Okay?
I would
So
like
with
to
that
see
being
drawings.
said, take out your calculators for a
That's
second.
a challenge.
I will.
That's a challenge.
Take out, in a minute. Take out your calculators. Do you see where it says sine, cosine, and tangent on your calculators?
I already
Do
knew
you
how to
see
do
how
this.
above it, it says, sine with a -1, cosine with a -1,
I see it.
okay?
Wow.
My
My nose.
When you press the seconds button, and then sine, it's going to
You
give
guys
you
see my
the
nose itching?
inverse of
I
sine,
finally feel that.
okay? When you press the second button and cosine, it's going to give you the inverse of cosine. And when you press the second button and tangent, it's going to give you the inverse of tangent. When I'm finding the inverse function, that means I'm finding the angle. We need to know what the angle is, okay? When I want to find a side, I just use sine, cosine, and tangent normal, okay? But when I want to find the angle, I use the inverse of it. With that being said, Here you have a 3, 4, 5 triangle, okay? And you have a 90-degree angle, and I want to figure out what the angle of A is. How can I figure out what the angle of A is?
Okay,
Okay.
so you do sine -1,
Okay, you use the inverse button, yes.
and then you do, since it's the inverse, you do 5/3.
Nope, sine is not 5/3.
But like it's the inverse.
Sine is not 5/3.
No, it's doing the,
Opposite.
it's doing the flipping for
Oh.
you. They're trying to.
3/5.
Yep, 3/5.
Do you do that?
Plug that in. Let's see what you get.
Point.
You get what? 36.9 if you round to 1 decimal. You need to put at least 1 decimal in with it. Okay, 36.9. Now, if I set it up with inverse of tangent, what would that look like from that angle, from angle A? Tangent is whatever what?
Opposite, 3/4.
3/4. So what does that come out to be?
36.9. Again, same thing.
Okay, and what happens if you use cosine? What would that look like? What's the ratio? 4/5, okay? So it doesn't matter which one we use if we have all the information. If we don't have all the information, we've got to look through that angle and say, I have opposite and adjacent, I'm using tangent. I have opposite and hypotenuse, I'm using sine. I have adjacent and hypotenuse, I'm using cosine. Okay, if I want to figure out what angle B is, what do I need to do?
You need
What would be the cosine of angle B?
It
4
would be
over 5.
4/5. 4/5 for cosine?
Yes.
no 5 over no.
3/5.
3/5. So what's the cosine of 3/5? The inverse of cosine. 53.1. Okay.
Yes.
Roughly 53.1, which would make sense because 36.9 added to 53.1 added to 90 will give you 180.
So we're not gonna have
What is-
even angle measures?
No, you will not have even angle
What
measures.
does the cosine?
Maybe, but most likely no.
What does the cosine button really do?
What do you mean, what does it really do?
Like, what
So,
is
like,
the
if you
mathematical
put-
equation?
Look it up.
That's not a question. That I can't really explain to you. It's not that it's a mathematical equation, it's that cosine, sine, and tangent are mathematical terms that we use because they are equations themselves.
So what do they do?
Who discovered
They
this?
allow you to find
How they figure it out?
No, I
sides
mean, like-
or angle measurements of when you're dealing with 90 degrees.
Like the square root, like roots it.
And sine, cosine, and tangent are proportions,
Yeah.
but proportions that then convert into other things. And then when you get into trigonometry, you're going to convert them not into degrees, but into radians. And radians is a different method of that we use with sine, cosine, and tangent.
Yeah, that's more. Okay.
So you have to know what mode your calculator's in, like mine, when I press mode here, I can change mine to degree or radian mode, okay? Because when you're dealing with sine, cosine, and tangent, what you're really dealing with is the fact that you have quadrants, yes, in everything that you do, and everything you do is revolved around in a circle, yes? So, at 90 degrees, pi at 90 degrees right here, you see how this triangle fits into that circle? So then that becomes a degree that also relates to a radian, because what is the radius of a circle?
The base of a triangle.
Well, it could possibly be, but the radius of a circle, and a circle deals with what? How do you find the circumference of a circle?
It's half of the diameter.
No, how do you find the circumference of a circle?
Diameter squared.
Diameter times pi, or pi times r squared, yes?
That's
So
a,
this is my radius, and this is my radius also, then my triangle now fits into something called radian modes.
pi r squared is the area.
It's 2 pi r.
Okay, 2 pi r. So
Yeah, that's
circumference or area,
Well,
doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh, Ames so
Okay, so that is why we end up having sine, cosine, and tangent, because it fits into what goes around in a circle with radian modes and things like that. And you're gonna get into that pretty deeply into pre-calc and calculus. And then you'll have graphs called sinusoidal graphs.
Hey,
Mhm.
Do I need to take calculus and
What do we take next year?
what are you gonna be, Kanan? Pastor?
Yeah, algebra 2's next
Either
year.
that or.
Okay, so on your homework tonight, if you are finding an angle, you are dealing with inverse. If you are finding a side, you are dealing with normal,
College algebra.
normal sine, cosine, and tangent. So basically, tonight's homework is going to be like you repeating these two things we did the last day.
We're teaching college algebra 2.